I'm Dan Drake. This is Front Up on Visitor Network TV and Channel 99. With us today is Jim Kelly, who is
Hi,
a
Dan.
candidate for the Board of Selectmen. Welcome, Jim.
Thank you. Thank you. Good to be here.
And you bring a particular perspective to the candidacy, having been involved with the
Yes.
Finance Committee for
Yeah.
how many years now?
9 years.
9 years.
And I've been I'm chairman now. I was chairman for 3 years prior to that too. So it's been a great experience.
Why? Why are you running?
First of all, if there are 3 things that I would like people to know about me before we get to the kind of the issues are, I'm a person where transparency, honesty, integrity are the most important things and most important values. Why am I running? I really have an interest in public service. Learning as being a member of the Finance Committee for so many years, I've quickly learned that the Finance Committee works for town meeting. So I'm very much of a person who's interested in working for others, working for citizens. And then I'm very passionate about several issues that we're facing, and I'd be happy to talk about those too.
But just an overview of sort of getting past those issues we're facing today and at town meeting. We'll get to those in a minute. What are your sort of general plans and ideas for?
So first of all, building on my role in the Finance Committee, having sound financial management practices. We've done a good job over the last several years of balancing the budget, having a clean audit opinion. One of the things we did on the Finance Committee was encourage citizens to come forward with citizen articles. So kind of based on that, the things I'm most passionate about is I'd like to see more of a strategic planning process or a planning process on the part of the Board of Selectmen. They should take a portion of every one of their meetings to talk about policies, maybe 25% of the meetings to talk about where do we want Nantucket to go, how do we reflect the views of citizens. In my business, running a hospital, we came together with what we want our kind of an aspirational vision for the organization to be. We picked 3 things that we thought would help us get us there. We had criteria to measure those, and I think we can do the same thing for Nantucket. Today in the Inquirer Mirror, Mary Ann's talked about hospitality. So let's pick 3 things that we want to be better than anybody else in the country. Is it hospitality? I don't know what those 3 things are. Personally, aside from public safety, I think the most important thing a community needs to be vibrant is a good school system. We've got a great school system. I've had a personal relationship for the last 30 years. I've been the alumni interviewer for the college I went to. Last 10 years I've been the interviewer for folks who wanted kids that want to go to that, and I've been very impressed with the quality of our education.
One of the things that I was actually looking through some old questions that I had written for the Meet the Candidates night. Since I'm not doing that this year, I think I can ask the question.
Right.
One of the things that I've noticed over the years is that candidates for selectmen seem to obviously have ideas and so on. When they get elected, it appears that they lose the fire in their belly, so to speak. That they get assimilated into the system.
Yeah, you can't let that happen.
The five members of the board
as I said, I'm about having a big picture, understanding what we're trying to accomplish. And I used to, at the end of my day as the hospital CEO in Houston, I'd leave work in the early evening and say, what have I done to further one or all of those initiatives to achieve our goal that we've agreed to? And that's just the way I do. That's just the way I've always been. I don't want to get in. I know you have to sometimes get in the weeds, but we can't let ourselves personally get so embroiled in those things that we can't step back. To me, the Board of Selectmen should work as a team. They're talented people. They should have a common goal, and they should let the people that are charged with doing the work do their work. My management philosophy is hire the best people, identify the goals, and let them do their job and give them feedback. A lot of the work that the Board of Selectmen does at their meetings when they review contracts, when they, many of those things could be done in a different way, say through a consent agenda. And that leaves them little time at the end to talk about anything other than, ambulance charges and whether we're going to have a $500 fee or a $100 fee for courtesy vans to park on the. So there's ways to simplify that.
What do you think the relationship, just to build on that a little bit, what should be the relationship between the board and the town manager?
So the board's responsibility is to set policy for the community, and that should be based on input they receive from the community. I think I'm all about, in my business it was patient satisfaction, employee satisfaction, and physician satisfaction. The board should create a set of policies around what we want to accomplish, and then out of that comes the Board of Selectmen goals. I asked someone the other day, what are your goals? What's the Board of Selectmen goals? And they, that needs to be in the top of the mind of every Board of Selectmen member. In the absence of that, you don't know where to spend your time, and you tend to be reactive to the things that are on an agenda. The town manager and the town administration, they've got, they should be delegated a lot of the things that are currently done by the Board of Selectmen. Let those folks do their job, create milestones, measurable milestones, and give them constructive feedback. I mean, it's up to the board to create a system where the people working in town administration can be successful.
Town meeting, there's some hot issues.
A few.
One of them is the sewers.
Yes, yeah.
I know you have recused yourself.
Right. I'm in one of the needs areas.
You're in one of the needs areas, so you're directly impacted by the proposal to sewer.
But actually sitting in the audience, it's given me a great perspective. One of the things I was proudest of was I firmly believe that the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee, whatever their judgment was, needed to be together. So we had a joint meeting of the Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen. And I wanted to make sure it wasn't, them versus us. So they all sat together. It was kind of crowded up there, but they all sat together. And it was a very important visual because this is a group of people who are all public servants, very different points of view and different constituencies, who sat down and reached what they thought was a good solution in terms of the method of apportionment. There were a couple of options. They came up with a sewer unit method, and then the apportionment of the split between betterment and the town. The sewer, one of the things I care about is water quality and sewer. I'm not a scientist, I'm not a hydrologist, but we hired good consultants. We've had the sewer work group, who for a couple of years went through all this data. We had some smart people on that. Nancy Wheatley chaired that. And it was their recommendation that we move forward with these projects in order to abide by the CWMP that we had filed with the state. It's expensive, though.
It is expensive, and the results aren't. I mean, clearly that by itself is not going to reduce the nitrogen loading to the level that needs to be.
No,
it needs to be reduced.
It's at least three things. It's the flushing of the jetties, and it's adopting the best practices which are now in force for fertilizer use. Now, there needs to be, I think, we don't have the funds, the town doesn't, to do the surveillance and the enforcement that we need, but I think there's some seasonal folks coming on this summer working for the town to do that.
Hold that thought.
Okay.
I'm going to come back to that issue of enforcement. But what else from town meeting? You've got
So we have Article 82, in addition to sewers and water quality, workforce housing, something I care a lot about. In my role in the hospital, we had the lack of workforce housing had an impact on recruitment and retention. And it's a concern for all of us. So currently the town, and I guess one could argue about, is that the town's responsibility? But if you pick one of those three things, and one of them is a vibrant year-round community, then you have to invest in housing. If you want to just have a commuter community, then the town says, no, that's fine, they can come every day. I don't think we want that personally. So Article 82 and Article 10 address those. 82 is a home rule petition that would, and the town's attempted to do this several times in the last 20 years or so, most recently in 2009, which would, and it's a fee paid by the seller upon the sale of a home. In Article 82, the current threshold is $2 million. And if we looked at, this past year, that would generate about $2 to $2.5 million to be used by the Affordable Housing Trust. The Finance Committee and me personally was very much in favor of that. We had a lot of issues about, should it be 2 million? Should it be some other number? Originally, there was the warrant article that came to us was a split between housing and town capital projects, 75-25. We felt that it should all be housing, so that was what our motion we made Monday was. We also felt that once it becomes law, it's difficult to change. So we wanted to, again, Finance Committee works for town meeting, so we wanted to give town meeting some collars around the renewal and the working of that. So we've got two in there. One is by a 2/3 vote, the town meeting can do a couple of things. They can change the fee, they can lower it, or they can eliminate it. So that gives that power. It's a high hurdle for 2/3. We also talked about, as we looked at other, like Land Bank and others who've done a wonderful job, but we want to make sure that funding workforce housing doesn't have unintended consequences, like town buys a lot of housing, prices go up, for example. So we put a collar around it, so the legislation or the town meeting is authorizing it for 10 years, and at the end of 10 years has to, by majority vote, reauthorize it, and then after 10 years they've got to do that every 5 years. So we felt that, again, it gives the power to gives them 10 years to get going, and gives the power to the town meeting.
Okay.
We also were concerned that there's no money in the budget right now. Home rule petitions take several years to get going. So we've added $1 million from free cash into Article 10 to provide some seed money to the Affordable Housing Trust.
Okay. We got to speed up here because we're running out of time.
Okay.
I did want to ask you about the issue of the town building moving out. And then I think the only thing that's on the town meeting agenda this year is the repeal of the prohibition against moving town offices, which has been ignored fairly fastidiously over the last
it was
several
temporary. It was the temporary, so that would repeal that.
Yeah. But the impact is that the town is now planning for a major facility at 2 Fairgrounds Road.
So
how do you feel about that?
So when I spoke to the board about that, when the consultants and architects made their presentation, they conducted a survey of town employees and didn't get input from anybody else. Town employees said, yeah, I've got a private office now, I want one in the new building. And that's fine, but that's the schematic design phase is probably the third phase. Before that, you have a conceptual design and guiding principles. So the design that's done now, if the guiding principle is to create a building that meets the needs of the municipal employees, that's great. It gives them underground parking. If you say no, what we need is a citizen service center, then you design a completely different building.
What about the idea of moving it out of town, though?
So when you decide how you're going to meet with those guiding principles, that will define where and what kind of building you need. Right now, it's like we're going to build this 20,000 square foot building, and then we're going to decide who goes in it, and then whatever's left stays downtown. I come from a totally different perspective. If you have a guiding principle that says we need a customer-friendly, user-friendly municipal service, that will define where people are, and then what goes. I think what goes in the municipal building, wherever it's built, is the last on that line.
We could discuss all the capital projects, of which there are many, either up front or in line. But I think the last topic I'd like to take up with you is come back to this issue of enforcement and the lack of money for enforcement.
Yeah.
And this is true across a wide variety of town rules and regulations that don't get enforced either by the police department or the building department or the health inspector, whomever it might be, just because there's no means of following through.
We may have too many rules.
Well, we may have too many rules, that's true.
And when you, just like the courtesy van, not to belabor that, but when you create fees and rules and you don't have the enforcement, that's not good government.
But there has been a lack of enforcement on HDC available to the HDC, available to the building department. Again, because there's no money.
And then what happens then it becomes and what we hear sometimes is, well, we do it based on complaints. And it shouldn't be based, it shouldn't be based on complaints. We had a discussion this year about abandoned vehicles and the fact that the bylaws and the rules of the zoning board, the zoning folks, and the town are not the same. They've got different rules, and so we're going to try to make them the same. Then we asked the question at FinCom, well, how does this get enforced? And the answer is, well, we rely on complaints. And I think there's probably a better way to do that. If that's an important rule, and we've decided that that's what we want, we need some enforcement money. And we talked about sewers and fertilizers, and right now the landscapers need a license that they carry, and that needs to be on their person. But we don't have anybody going around. We do this, we will this summer, but to date we don't have people going around and saying, show me your license.
All right. Jim, I'm sorry we have to cut this off,
I'd love to do more,
we'd love to keep
Great.
going, but
Okay.
thank you, and
Thank
best of
you.
luck to you.
Thanks.